The world of looksmaxing just keeps getting weirder. I've talked about looksmaxing and the community's poster boy, clavicular, I guess you could say, a few times now, and that whole world has its fair share of bizarre ideas and very questionable procedures. But what I want to talk about today is kind of a niche offshoot from looksmaxing, and it takes the weirdness to a whole other level. Because rather than obsessing over how to make themselves better looking or supposedly more attractive to women, there seems to be a growing trend of men focusing more on trying to look as masculine as possible by any means necessary other than hard work. From crushing their own ears to look tougher, to muscle implants and injections, beard transplants, and even trying to make their testicles hang lower. More and more men seem obsessed with pursuing a very distorted viewpoint of masculinity, version of masculinity, even if they have to fake it. If you're wondering why on earth anyone would do some of these things, I don't blame you. So today I'm going to be talking about exactly what lengths men are willing to go to in order to look more manly, as well as what's causing them to do this and why this trend seems to be growing in recent years. Okay, first of all, let's start with the story that originally prompted me to do this video. According to a Vice article, men in Russia are apparently paying people to give them cauliflower ears on purpose. In case you've never heard of it, cauliflower ears. It's a deformity of the outer ear that can become permanent if not treated quickly enough. It's usually caused by people getting hit in the ear a lot or by repeated friction on the ears, which is why it's common amongst rugby players, boxers, wrestlers, and people who do Brazilian jiu-jitsu or other combat sports. The trauma to their ears causes blood to pool between the cartilage in their ear and the layer called the perichondrium, which is what supplies oxygen and nutrients to the cartilage. If they get the blood drained pretty quickly, within about a week, then the cauliflower ears can be prevented. But if they leave it, which most kind of sporty people do, the blood blocks off the supply of oxygen and nutrients, causing the cartilage underneath to die. Then their body tries to heal the damage by creating scar tissue and extra cartilage. This leaves them with that sort of lumpy, swollen looking ears we refer to as cauliflower ears. I don't know why, because it doesn't look like cauliflower in any way. I don't know, I don't get it. Now, as you can probably imagine, it's generally not something most people want to get. First of all, a lot of people aren't fans of the way it looks, understandably. But on top of that, it can be incredibly painful, making it difficult to lie down or wear earphones or headphones without issues. In some cases, it can even cause hearing loss, tinnitus, balance issues, headaches, and it leaves you at higher risk of developing infections. So seeing as it's fairly easy to prevent if you wear appropriate head protection or if you just get it drained in time, most people do try to avoid it if they can. But according to this Vice article, more and more Russian men, especially in the south of the country where wrestling and grappling is particularly popular, apparently they're paying 6,000 rubles, about £80 per ear, for the pleasure of having this permanent disfigurement. In fact, it's apparently getting so popular that one practitioner of these procedures allegedly claimed that he has a month-long waiting list. They weren't very specific about what they're actually doing to people's ears exactly, but it supposedly involves compressing the ear to cause enough trauma to get the ear to fill up with blood. Clients can apparently even choose where exactly on their ear that they want the cauliflower ear to develop, and if they want more dramatic results, they have to have multiple sessions. But as the article also points out, the early stages of cauliflower ear, when blood is just pooling up and sitting in your ear, leaves you particularly vulnerable to infection. The trapped blood creates the ideal breeding ground for bacteria growth, and once that happens, you have a pus-filled lump in your ear that's literally eating away at your cartilage, which again leads to permanent disfigurement. And once things have gone wrong, or even if you just later realize that this was a stupid idea and you want to go back to how your ears were before, it's not that easy. The only way to fix the damage you've done is through reconstructive surgery, which requires either taking cartilage from your ribs or using a prosthetic implant. Recovery from this surgery takes up to 4 months and costs start at 100,000 rubles in Russia, so just over $1,000 $1,200, I think it is. So we get back to asking why anyone would willingly choose to do this to themselves, or even worse, pay money to have this done. The very simple answer is that this has kind of become like a status symbol to a lot of men. It's seen as a sign of toughness or of masculinity. As I mentioned earlier, cauliflower ear is particularly common in combat sports, that wrestling, jiu-jitsu, boxing, MMA, and as these sports, particularly BJJ and MMA, have become more popular with a certain demographic, more people are seeing their favorite fighters walking around with cauliflower ear, so they want to look like them. And this isn't a phenomenon that's exclusive to Russia. For a pretty long time now, cauliflower ear has been seen as a badge of honor by many people involved in these kind of combat sports, especially in the US when it comes to the wrestling or grappling communities. Just to be clear, when I say wrestling, I mean like that college wrestling or like Olympic wrestling, not like WWE. There are countless videos online of people who are actual fighters in one combat sport or another talking about cauliflower in a very positive way about why they wanted to get it, how they're disappointed that they've been training for years and haven't gotten it yet, or even how they went about getting it on purpose because they wanted to speed up the process. They're doing everything from rubbing their ears with towels to create friction and inflammation to smashing their ears between weighted plates, which is crazy, and even punching themselves in their ear or hitting their ears with a hammer. But what seems to have changed in recent years is that more and more normal men who aren't training in any kind of combat sport, are starting to see cauliflower ear as something aspirational or as an aesthetic choice.
If you are a wrestler and have spent time in the sport, you are going to want cauliflower ear. If you don't,
there's something wrong with you.
I see cauliflower ear as a badge of honor. There's a reason people say don't mess with someone with cauliflower ear at a bar.
They earned that.
They want other men to look at them and be intimidated because they think they're a trained fighter. This is what I mean by looksmaxxing. It's so gay, so gay. It used to be mostly men, right, who were at least training as a wrestler or in some kind of martial art, who saw it as a positive thing to have cauliflower ear. You know, like it's proof that they've been beaten the fuck up or that they've spent years training hard and making sacrifices to get to the point where their ears look like that. But now it's just ordinary men who want to fake it without putting in any of that hard work. Hard work training, not hard work to get those ears. But I do think there's more to this than just increasing popularity of those sports. I think part of it is to do with the looksmaxxing community and that becoming so much more popular and mainstream. Like I said, I think this whole thing is a kind of offshoot of that culture. Looksmaxxing has made so many young men feel like they need to change their appearance in some drastic way. Like there's a specific way men are supposed to look, behave, act, and if they don't fit into that, then they are a failure. It's also made young men feel like carrying out dangerous or DIY cosmetic procedures is totally normal, like a normal thing to do. They're taking steroids as teenagers, injecting themselves with experimental peptides, punching themselves in the face to shape their jaw. We've seen Clavicular inject his girlfriend on live stream, you know, crazy shit. And after all that, crushing your ears to make them look lumpy and deformed doesn't seem that crazy. It doesn't seem so out of pocket. All of that combined with the rise of the manosphere and all these influences going on about masculinity and how to be a real man, I think has led to this kind of trend. Young men have got so many people pushing a distorted version of masculinity onto them. One that says being big, being muscular, being tough, that's what being a man is all about. Obviously that isn't true. Masculinity, as we know, comes in many, many forms. Some of them may include working out or learning to fight. Others show strength in very different ways. Moral courage, taking accountability, emotional intelligence, having the courage to be vulnerable, acting with integrity, being a supportive partner, showing empathy, lifting up others if you're able to do so. These are all examples of strength and masculinity that don't involve flexing your muscles or looking tough or looking a certain way. But this is a very narrow version of masculinity constantly being pushed down people's throat, especially these days. Like, it's not surprising that so many young men are resorting to bizarre procedures like fake cauliflower ears in an attempt to meet those expectations. A lot of men seem to have lost sight of what masculinity really means and who they're doing it for. They're increasingly looking to aesthetic traits as a way to show their masculinity. But cauliflower ear isn't the only thing that's being used as a sign of toughness or sacrifice or hard work, which is now sought after by some men for purely aesthetic reasons. Can't you just wear a t-shirt with some oil stains on it and be like, whew? been working hard. There are all sorts of physical traits that used to just be an earned side effect of doing something hard, which are now seen by some men as an aesthetic choice that they can make to alter their appearances, so they're perceived in that certain way. Some aren't too bad, right? Like having calloused hands, large forearms, and prominent tan lines, so you look like you work a manual labor job outdoors kind of thing. Well, you know, you shouldn't have tan lines. Apart from deliberately tanning or trying to weather your skin, which obviously isn't a good idea, these things really aren't that crazy. Though it is strange that some men don't work those kinds of jobs, are trying to give themselves calluses and large forearms in the gym. I mean, sure, whatever. So it looks like that they work a tougher job than they actually do, which I find so strange. Just say I work out. There are also examples of men deliberately scarring their knuckles or even breaking their nose, so they look like they've been in a lot of fights and are more intimidating. And scars in particular seem to be something that a lot of men actually want. There are so many discussions online about how scars make you look more manly, and a lot of men seem to love showing off their scars. And to be fair, this is a phenomenon that's been around for a very, very long time. Back in the 19th and 20th century, young men at university in places like Germany, Austria, and Switzerland used to have duels with swords in which cutting each other's face was basically the entire goal. The resulting scars were basically very highly praised as signs of their courage. And throughout history, there have been various other cultures where the men in particular have used deliberate scarring to signify their strength, pain tolerance, courage, and overall manliness. These practices had mostly disappeared in the modern world, it seems, until fairly recently. Now, purposefully scarring or disfiguring yourself to look tougher or more masculine appears to be making a comeback. All of these physical traits that were previously earned in some way and were associated with hard work, doing manual labor, fighting for a living, going to war, now they're all becoming an aesthetic choice used to signal your masculinity. But what caught my eye about the Russian cauliflower ear story in particular is that it seems to be the first example of a more organized industry, as it were, when it comes to giving people cauliflower ear. I haven't seen any other reports anywhere at all of people actually paying to have this done. But faking cauliflower ear isn't the only procedure on offer these days to give men a more masculine look. It's just the latest thing. In fact, the concept of selling masculinity through cosmetic procedures has become a whole industry in itself. There are a whole host of cosmetic procedures you can get these days to supposedly communicate your masculinity through your appearance, and people are paying an awful lot of money to do it. If you want to look more athletic or physically capable, you can get muscle implants, like ones for your pecs, calves, and biceps, and this involves inserting medical grade silicone implants under your muscles to make them look bigger. It's basically like a boob job, but for men. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you, it always looks like shit. A new set of pecs will cost you anything between £7,000 to £12,000 in the UK. Calves will set you back about 3 to 5 for each leg, and about the same for a bigger set of biceps. Or you can get abdominal etching to make it look like you have abs. This basically involves specifically targeted liposuction to suck out pockets of fat around your ab muscles to make them look defined and sculpted. And you could pay anywhere between £3,000 and £10,000 for the pleasure of, again, not so great looking abs. So you don't need to actually spend years training in the gym anymore, lifting weights, managing your diet, doing ab workouts. Now you can just imitate the look without having to do any of the work, which is fine, do what you want, but... Or maybe you feel like you have a masculine body, but your face is letting you down. You can go for facial masculinities, that's masculinisation, where they use implants and fillers in your jaw, cheeks, chin, etc. in order to try and make you look more masculine. I've had this done before. I didn't really like it, I just wanted to try it. I don't have any problem with this, I get filler. But depending on what you get done, it could of course cost you anywhere between a few £100s for the fillers, up to tens of thousands for a full face transformation. There are much better people who do this than others. It's been popular, especially in the trans community for a while now, but it seems to be becoming increasingly popular among cisgender men who want to look more masculine and rugged. I guess they don't think it counts as gender affirming care when they do it, right? Another procedure you can get, which has really taken off in the last 10 years or so, is a beard transplant. I mean, we've all heard about the swarms of men flying to Turkey for hair transplants, but it never even occurred to me that would be also for the beard. Like there's a beard option. It will cost you anywhere from 1,500 to fill in small patches, 4 to 5,000 for a bit more than 7,500 or more for a full beard transplant. Beards and moustaches seem to have always fluctuated in popularity throughout the decades and centuries, but these days they're seen by many as a form of masculinity. Having a patchy beard or not really being able to grow one at all is thought of by a lot of men as some sort of shortcoming, like you aren't manly enough, whereas a full beard is seen as a sign that you are a real man. But perhaps the strangest of all new cosmetic procedures available to men these days is one I hinted at earlier. Scrotox is basically what it sounds like, horrifying as that may be. It's injecting Botox into your scrotum. That's it. It started out as a purely medical procedure that was used to relieve pain from chronic inflammation on the testicles. But in recent years, it's become more popular as a cosmetic procedure amongst men because they want their testicles to look bigger and hang lower, apparently. It supposedly makes them less wrinkly and less sweaty, which I guess is a good thing, even if it's gross to think about. Just get that spray. I mean, do you care? Like, who's looking at them? Like, are you in the changing room, the locker room, like just being like, Look, I don't know. I don't think a woman's gonna look at your scrotum and be like, oh my God, they're so smooth and low. You're a real man. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Clearly selling masculinity to men is big business these days, and companies are really leaning into the idea of selling identity in order to get men through the doors and paying thousands for procedures. When cosmetic procedures are sold to women, they tend to use marketing words like youthful, anti-aging, glow, radiant. It's not necessarily about being more feminine. It's just about being younger. When these kinds of procedures are marketed to men though, youth isn't the goal. It's about masculinity, confidence, self-assurance. It's about strengthening your identity as a man through your appearance. And what's sad is that it seems to have become the most important part of masculinity for a lot of young men. For some, it's seen as the only way to truly achieve true masculinity. Like they've been brainwashed by social media and all the manosphere influencers into thinking that your appearance is the most important part about being a man. Andrew fucking Tate in his like year 4 English teacher outfit. I swear Miss Kelly used to wear this. Who was listening to him about anything? But I do think that's incredibly sad because this way of thinking is pushing men to pursue more and more extreme procedures in order to meet the ideal image of what a man should look like these days. Ideal. So it's no surprise that cases of body dysmorphia have steadily been rising among men in recent years. But I also think it's sad that so many men are growing up with an incredibly distorted view of what masculinity is. And not only does it make them unpleasant to be around and makes it difficult for them to find partners and sympathy in some way, hence the whole male loneliness epidemic, but they're also missing out on some of the best parts of what masculinity really is. Sure, you can pay for cauliflower ears that might make people think you fight, or you can pay for fake muscles and abs to make people think you work out. They won't. They never look real. Or you can get a beard transplant so people think you look a little bit more rugged and people are like, oh look, he has a beard. But none of that makes you a man. And eventually you'll realize that the identity you've built is hollow. There's nothing underneath it. So many young men are searching in the wrong places for a sense of identity nowadays, for a sense of how to be masculine in today's world. But as long as you think looking big and muscly and tough is the pinnacle of what being a man is, you're never going to find out what real masculinity is. It's not about the way you look, it's about the way you act, the way you handle your emotions, and the way you treat others. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. What do you think real masculinity is? Do you think having cauliflower ears or fake muscles makes men look more manly? And have you ever wished your partner's testicles hung lower or were less wrinkly? Let me know. Go and ask your partners now if they want... Yeah, go and ask them if they want Scrotox and let me know in the comments what they say, and hopefully I'll see you next time.